Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is great to be back here at Armortech with our team here. Every day, all of us hear from businesses who can't find enough workers. We need to make Ontario a destination of choice for Canada's tradespeople and skilled professionals. Today, we're calling on skilled workers from across Canada to come here to Ontario. We're rolling out the carpet to make it easier for you to come here with your families. Through legislation we're going to introduce very soon, we will be guaranteeing qualified professionals a 30-day service standard for getting their credentials approved. If passed, workers won't have to wait for weeks to know whether their application has been received, months while it is being assessed by regulators, and then weeks for the decision to be sent. To be competitive, we must cut the red tape holding back our workers and put them in the driver's seat. This is why Ontario will be recognizing all Red Seal trades, why we're making it easier for workers who are trained to work at heights to do so here, and why we're aligning curriculum so apprentices can easily keep training. We're attracting the best in building back a stronger Ontario. Thank you, everyone, and I'm pleased to introduce Premier Ford.
That's great. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Monte, for that introduction. And thanks to Carl, Doug, and Greg, along with the incredible team here at Armortech in London for having us. Friends, our government has a plan for growing a stronger economy, an economy that works for everyone. It's a plan that will attract investment to create good jobs in our auto and manufacturing sector. It's a plan that's connecting resources and industries in Northern Ontario to the future of clean steel and electric vehicles. And it's a plan that's building roads, bridges, and highways, expanding subways and public transit, and constructing more homes, all for a growing province. Friends, we're building Ontario, but right now, our province is in the middle of a historic labour shortage. In fact, it's the largest labour shortage in a generation. We've created the environment for an economy that is booming right now, with 338,000 good jobs waiting to be filled, and that number is only growing. We've heard countless stories of jobs going unfilled, costing Ontario billions in lost productivity. Every day these jobs go unfilled, it's another day we don't reach our full economic potential. So as we invest in job training for people already here, we also need to make it easier for hardworking people to come to Ontario. But for skilled workers wanting to move to Ontario, getting the required certification to work in our province takes way too long, and I can tell you, it drives me absolutely crazy. The amount of red tape that previous governments added, it's beyond belief. And it's unacceptable when we're competing for the best of the best talent anywhere in the world. Well, my friends, those days are over, because our government will introduce legislation that will make it easier for workers from other provinces to fill in-demand jobs right here in Ontario. These changes would help workers in over 30 in-demand professions move here with their families by ensuring out-of-province workers can register in their regulated profession or trade within 30 days. We will also officially recognize all professions under the Red Seal program, a common standard for apprenticeship training and certification. If our legislation is passed, skilled workers like engineers, architects, and mechanics, the people who will help build Ontario, can help fill critical jobs. Friends, it's never been more important for Ontario to be training and attracting more skilled workers, because our government is building Ontario with over $148 billion in infrastructure projects. including bridges, roads, and highways. These new workers will drive on and the new homes we need for our growing population. As we're building Ontario, making it easier for out-of-province skilled workers to come and start a career just makes sense. So let me say this, you're welcome here and we want you. Our economy needs you. And as we watch in horror what's happening in Ukraine, I'm asking the federal government to welcome more Ukrainian refugees to Ontario. These are brave women and men who more than anything need safe harbor right now, and at a time when our province needs more people. The hardworking people of Ukraine will always be welcome here. And when you get here, there'll be in-demand jobs and economic opportunity waiting here for you. Our government will be here to support with settlement services for anyone fleeing from Ukraine right now. Because that's what we do here in Ontario, and that's what we do here in Canada. Our province has come so far, and we can't afford to go back to politics of no. Instead, your government is saying yes. Yes to building, yes to investing, and yes to workers. Friends, let's say yes to a better and brighter future that the people of Ontario deserve. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
We'll now take questions from the microphone. If media can please form a line behind me. It'll be one question and one follow-up per outlet.
Hello, Premier
Hi.
Ford.
How are you?
The NDP have introduced a legislation, the Our London Family Act. I just wanted to know if that's something your government's going to pass in the spring session.
Well, you know something, first of all, let me tell you, I remember I was here last year when this tragedy happened, and I grieved with the families, and we can never let this happen again here in Ontario. I'm gonna tell you what we are doing and have done. We recently announced $25 million to protect faith-based and cultural organizations against hate crimes. We also launched the Anti-Racism, Anti-Hate Grant with $3.2 million to fund awareness projects. And we're reviewing the legislation, and we will review it. We will continue to work with all the communities to support them in combating hate and intolerance in Ontario. There's no place for hate and intolerance anywhere here in our province. We have one of the most multicultural jurisdictions anywhere in the world, and that's what makes Ontario the great to live.
With regards to Ukrainian refugees and others, you know, does the province have things in place that allow people to get fast-tracked from international credentials? Is that something you have in place here, ready to go?
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer that. I'm going to pass it over to my minister here for a minute. My call out to the Prime Minister. We need to speed things up, expedite people fleeing the tyranny that Russia has put on Ukraine. It's absolutely disgusting, and the rest of the world has to step up, and Ontario is going to be at the front of the line welcoming people here. And the settlement services folks there, they're ready. The Ukraine community is ready. I come from one of the largest Ukrainian communities in Canada, in Etobicoke Centre. I know these people personally. They're some of the hardest working, brightest people that I know. And I just want to tell them we welcome them. We welcome if you have relatives there, if you have friends there, and they're fleeing Ukraine right now, we're going to open our arms and help them any way we can. I'm going to pass it over to Monte McNaughton.
Great. Well, thank you, Premier. Look, it's a heartbreaking situation that we heard yesterday coming out of Ukraine. As the Premier said, Ontario wants to welcome Ukrainians here. That's why yesterday morning I picked up the phone and called the Minister of Immigration federally, Sean Fraser, offered to set up a dedicated stream to fast-track immigrants and refugees from Ukraine. And I'm proud to say that employers across Ontario are stepping up, and our labour partners as well, with 20,000 positions ready by Ukrainians if and when get here to Ontario. So it's all hands on deck. We want to help, and we've offered the federal government our full support to make the transition as quickly and safely as possible to build a stronger province here.
I'd also just like to introduce Monte's PAs, Deepak Anand, a great member, and the famous PA Bob Bailey, representing the folks down in Sarnia. They love them down there, by the way. Yes.
Premier, the leader has suggested that the sale of Russian vodka be banned from LCBOs. Is that something that you would support in response to the aggression in the Ukraine?
Well, actually, I'll be honest, it wasn't the Liberals. We were discussing this yesterday with the Finance Minister. But in saying that, that's a very, very small part. And I'd be willing to discuss that further with the Finance Minister, and you'll have words later on. But do you know what's important? What's important is making sure we expedite the process to get as many people from Ukraine that have fled to other countries, predominantly Poland, to come here. And make sure that they know they're welcome, make sure that they know that we have a group that when they settle here, we're going to be there to support them, and the community is going to be there to support them. And I think that's the most important thing. And if we can get them over here, Ontario, and I'm sure the Canada will send planes over there to pick them up. Let's load up those planes, bring them here to a safe haven. Greatest place in the world to live and work and raise a family is right here in Ontario.
This is a question for you or either Minister McNaughton, but what exactly is being done to get Ukrainians here to our province? It was mentioned that 20,000 jobs are open. Is there the potential to let more than 20,000 people in? Absolutely.
We have a shortfall of 338,000. I've talked to the Consul General personally. I'm going to be speaking to the federal government over the weekend and hopefully this afternoon to see what Ontario can do to speed the process up. We will do whatever it takes to make sure that we get as many people here as possible, and not just 20,000 is just one union. I'm going to pass it back to Monte here in a second. One union has stepped up, and I love these guys, Leona. They said, we'll take 20,000. There's endless people that are texting me saying, we need people, we'll take them. Ukrainian communities are saying, we will support them, we will help them. So it's all hands on deck. And I just want to thank the people of Ontario. As I said in my speech there, this is what we do in Ontario, and this is what we do in Canada. We welcome other people, and that's what makes us the greatest province, greatest country in the world to live. So I'll pass it over to you, Monte.
Well, the Premier's right. I mean, more than 300,000 jobs are going unfilled today in Ontario. One of the things that we're really proud of is we're leading Canada when it comes to recognizing international credentials. We passed the Working for Workers Act back in the fall to become the very first place in Canada to recognize internationally trained workers. So in the Ukraine, for example, there's a strong background in the skilled trades, in IT. There's a lot of talent, and employers and unions have stepped up to literally provide thousands of job opportunities tomorrow for people from Ukraine. And the Premier's right, that number is growing. Already today, we've had dozens of employers reaching out to help these people. And the government's going to have their backs. We're going to support the Ukrainian Canadians that are here today, and we're going to help get Ukrainians out of Ukraine to a safe haven so they can provide a better, safer life for them and their families.
Is Ontario going to do anything to ramp up economic pressures on Russia, like banning Russian imports or exports?
Well, that's a discussion. We'll be speaking with the federal government I'll throw everything in the kitchen book at these guys. You know, this is terrible. It's as I say, it's tyranny. They've put on innocent country like Ukraine. You know, to march in there and take over is totally unacceptable. The world has to unite. We have to make sure we go right after the source of income of the Russian government, cut off their oil, and this is what we need to do. You know, we need to get our pipelines going. President Biden has to open up our pipelines rather than buying dirty oil off of Russia, and I'll call it dirty oil. We need to start producing our oil, which we have endless amounts of oil, but we need President Biden to make sure he opens up and changes his mind on the XL pipeline. It just doesn't make sense that we're supporting people like Vladimir Putin. That's where he's getting his cash from. And we have to cut him off the SWIFT financial services that the world relies on. That could put a dent in 40% of his economy. But we can't be, you know, waffling and everything. We have to hit this guy with everything we possibly have. And I'll be really emphasizing that to the Prime Minister and the federal government. But we can't hold back, because guess what? You let him away with this, he makes his next move and his next move, and that can't happen. We have to stop him in his tracks. Zero tolerance with this guy.
Premier, following up on the Our London Families Act, I know you were down here and spoke very strongly that you were willing to do whatever it takes to eradicate Islamophobia immediately after the tragedy. The National Council of Canadian Muslims has backed this legislation. I'll ask you again, will you be more firm in your support of this legislation that was tabled on Wednesday?
As I mentioned earlier, we're always open to sitting down, and I don't care where the legislation comes from. But I was here, you know, when that happened. I grieved with the Muslim community. My future son-in-law is Muslim. The gentleman that grew up with me, that lived in our house for 8 years, was Muslim. I feel it. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that never happens again. And we'll have further words to say about that in the very near future.
And about your announcement today, sir, London has many high-tech jobs like the facility you're in right now, but we also have many low and moderate skill facilities, two of which, one a food processing plant, one a large warehouse facility will be opening soon. We also have one of the smallest labor participation rates in Canada. What can you do to help fill jobs in the low and moderate skill areas?
Well, thanks for the question. It's a great question. You know, let me just remind everyone, before we took office, the previous government created an environment for 300,000 jobs to leave our province. Companies were leaving in the droves. We had the largest sub-sovereign debt in the entire world, some of the highest hydro prices in all of North America. Companies were leaving in the droves. Since we took over, I always say the government doesn't create jobs. We create the environment for great companies like Armatech to thrive and prosper and grow. We were able to cut $7 billion of burden off the backs of companies, no matter if it was a $2.4 billion of WSIB premiums or cutting $400 million of red tape and regulations. But that's not $7 billion once, it's $7 billion every single year. And when you create that environment, companies from all over the world are just flocking to Ontario like we've never seen before. Every single night, I get an update from our Minister of Economic Development, Vic Fideli, and they just come non-stop. Billions, not hundreds of millions, not millions, billions of dollars are being invested from all different sectors, be it high-tech, manufacturing, the auto sector, the battery sector. And these are some staggering figures, folks, when you create that environment. Because I say when you create the environment, companies thrive, prosper, and grow, but guess what? their employees thrive, prosper, and grow. It turns into an employee market. You can pretty well, right now, pick and choose who you're working for and the amount that you need. But these are staggering figures that our province has never seen in decades. In 2019, our revenues were $156 billion. So remember that number. Revenues were $156 billion in 2019. Fiscal year 2021-22, throughout the pandemic, greatest pandemic we've ever seen in God knows generations, and companies were closing. Our revenues now are $176.7 billion. We went from $156 billion to $176 billion from 2019 to fiscal year 2021-22, and that's what happens when you create this environment. And I can tell you, it wasn't me. It was great companies like Armatech, great employees that are super, super bright. The ingenuity here and the smarts are second to none. And just look what they're producing. You know, maybe we should send some of those vehicles over to Ukraine. And I might need one for the campaign as we start, guys. So I might have to rent one of those. But what an incredible company, great employees, second to none. I'll put these folks up against absolutely anyone. And by the way, our government should be, federal government should be purchasing some of these as well, creating more jobs.
Last question.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey, Mr. Premier. Good afternoon. Yeah. Banning vodka at the LCBO is a bit of a dog whistle. And I know that a lot of responsibility is with the feds in international trade. But what can Ontario, and I'm looking for specifics, not platforms, but what specific can Ontario do to sanction or to affect Russia's economy?
Well, first of all, we're having a meeting with, as I mentioned his name, Vic Fideli earlier on, and our finance minister to find out all the trade that we do in Russia. We will be in contact with our federal counterparts, the Deputy Premier, Chrystia Freeland, and we're going to throw everything we have at them. But do you know what it is, Jamie? What the people of Ukraine right now need? They need safe haven. They need to come here. We have a massive Ukrainian population, a massive one in Etobicoke that we love, and we're going to welcome them. And if we have to send planes over there, we'll send planes over there ourselves to pick people up and bring them back and get them settled.
Thank you. And the next question, to completely change the topic. Cynthia and City News did a story yesterday about constituency offices being vandalized, criminal activity around, not just on a provincial level, but at a local level and at a federal level. And I know that they've increased security around you. This is a different political time to be a politician. Your thoughts, and are you worried?
You know, that was a great story that Cynthia did, actually. I actually watched it, and, you know, this crosses all political lines, by the way. It's not PC or Liberals or Dippers or Green or whatever. There's a full frontage of attack on democracy here. And when you have people running around smashing windows, and I think it happened to Deepak Anand, it happened to a couple Liberal MPs, MPPs, and NDP. Unacceptable. Guys, we live in Canada. Do you know what democracy is? You don't like that party? Guess what? Every 4 years, you either get to vote them in or you get to kick their butts out. That's the way we should do it. And personal attacks, be it on the mayor of Toronto or the public health officers because you disagree with something, you know, my house, and it's not even about me. We're used to it. We've been in this game a long time. But when you're under siege at your home and your neighbors are getting threats from mace, knives, baseball bats, hockey sticks, ongoing, and we have a whole bunch of kids on our street. As I've said from day one, I believe in freedoms and liberties and the right to protest. You know, if you go down to City Hall or go down to Queen's Park and you protest and you leave at night, that's democracy. not going out there and threatening and guys showing up to your door with butcher knives and death threats on a weekly basis. That's unacceptable. Man, we're living in Canada. That's what I have to say. But it has to come to an end. I'll tell you, right across the board. And if you get caught, then they need to be punished. I'm sorry, Jamie, I can't hear you. I'm worried for fellow politicians. I'm always worried about my family. Some of the nasty things they said they'd do to my daughters and my wife. I can't even repeat them on air. But you know, I have so much confidence, and I'm so grateful for our great police. I'm so grateful for my OPP detail. They're the best anywhere in the world, and they understand. They have their families, I have my family, but you know, what we have to do is unite the country, unite the province. I get it. I get that people were frustrated and ticked off and disagreed and wanted things open, but now this is a time to unite. The mandates are going. You know, nothing's worse than fighting amongst, you know, fellow Canadians or people that live in Ontario. And we got to focus on one thing, folks. That's the economy. This is vicious competition around the world. We're competing against everyone over in Europe and in Asia, and even our greatest neighbors in the world are south of the border. We need to unite and show everyone our talent and tell people that Ontario is open for business. But that's my #1 goal, Jamie, is to unite people to the very best of our ability. We're getting through this, and thank goodness we're dropping a huge amount of the mandates on the 1st. You'll be seeing me doing cartwheels down the street when we do that. I think you know how I feel about that, and I just want to thank the people of Ontario for 2 years. They've done an incredible job, and I just want to thank them. Thank the frontline heroes and all the emergency service folks.
All right, thank you, Premier.
Okay, thanks everyone. And I want to thank the people of Armatech. That's great. Thank you.